retreat about a decade ago with Satchidananda Swami. It was in Georgia. Yagna Purush and Satchidananda Swami were running this fantastic japa retreat. And this was a 50-round day. So everyone had to do 50 rounds. And except for the instructor, you're not allowed to say any word but the Maha Mantra. Even when you ate, you had to eat in silence. And as a beautiful hilly rural retreat with a river flowing through it, nice places to walk, very good place for the mind to focus. So I'd been chanting all day, but by about 4 p.m, as we say, I had chanted out what my mind could handle. And we each have our limits. And then Satchidananda Swami sees me in the hallway and he says, "Hey, Brahma, can we talk a little?" And I go, "Thank God." And so we went to his room, shut the door, because he was the instructor, he could talk, but I wasn't supposed to be. And we talked for 3 hours. And what was it? And he said, well, he wanted to talk about how devotees sometimes see things from different points of view and to understand, compare my experience with his, because he had gone for some very deep realizations. I said some of the deepest I've seen. And sometimes when we have deep realizations, it may not be the ordinary realizations that we hear about and how to get deeper. And sometimes when something's out of the ordinary, we have a tendency to wonder about it. What's going on here? And I really learned a lot from that conversation. One, I was sure glad to, after 12 hours of silence, it was nice to talk again. I'm a talker. And two, each of us, even though I consider him my mentor, my senior, but we could exchange our mind, reveal our minds to each other, and look at things from different angles. And we both walked away knowing a lot more. So just because we don't see things the same way, we don't want to end up in the movement, a society where we all become mindless robots. There was a deprogrammer named Ted Patrick. Now, many of you have heard of him. Ted Patrick was in the 70s and into the 80s. I met him. He wasn't very intelligent, but devotees would pay, parents of devotees would pay to kidnap the devotees and deprogram them. And most of the time, he failed. Every once in a while, somebody of weaker faith, he'd convince him. So he was on a TV show in Atlanta, and on the show, he debated with Hridayananda Maharaj. And I was on the same show the week before. It was like a 3-part show. And there he referred to us as mindless robots who slurp our food off wax paper on the floor. The second part turned out to be true. In those days, we would put wax paper on the floor and put on the morning prasadam on there, and sometimes devotees would actually do that, slurp it up. So second part, he actually got it right. First part, he was a little bit off on. Referred to as mindless robots. So the point is that as devotees, we're not mindless robots. So we have different points of view. We have different angles. As I mentioned in a previous class, I love this saying of Ram Baru. Our movement's motto ought to be International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the Radical Personalists. Now, radical personalism, and this will get into the verse we're doing today in a moment, radical personalism can take the effect of being rugged individuals, that I'm better than you, all built on the false ego. Or That's a very immature stage of uselessness, useful radical personalism. Or radical personalism can take the effect that each of us are individuals with a deep spiritual yearnings and identities, and we really have mutual respect for that. So somebody is born and they're really wired to do kshatriya activities. And somebody is born to do Brahminical activities. It's their nature. And Krishna says in the Gita, how is he described sin? To act against our nature. So better we do our own nature imperfectly than try to perfectly do someone else's nature. So this is radical personalism. But to understand our nature, we go through a purification process, which brings us to our verse today. So we'll get to a verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now, I ask everybody who's still not in their underwear or able to put on their cameras, please do so. If your camera's not on, I assume you're in your underwear, and that's fine. Okay. Okay. So we have 2/3 of you still in your underwear. That's fine. We can live with that. The question is, can you live with that? Okay, so we'll get on now to, we are doing chapter 3, verse 29, the birth of Lord Krishna. And yesterday we had Krishna Leela speaking very well on this same topic. Actually, he spoke beautifully on it. Janmate Mayi Asu Papo Ma Vidyan Madhusudana Samudvi Bhava Deto Kamsadaham Adiradi. Oh Madhusudana, because of your appearance, I'm becoming more and more anxious in fear of Kamsa. Therefore, please arrange for that sinful Kamsa to be unable to understand you have taken birth from my womb. Purport. Devaki addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Madhusudana, which means the killer of the demon Madhu. She was aware that Lord had killed many demons like Madhu, who were hundreds and thousands of times more powerful than Kamsa. Yet because of affection for the transcendental child, she believed that Kamsa could kill him. Instead of thinking the unlimited power of the Lord, she thought of the Lord with affection, and therefore she requested the transcendental child to disappear. So good morning to you all, and I see my dear friend Henry there, and Andrea's smile always encouraged me. And Adi, that was one of the most beautiful kirtans leading into this. You got it together. Very well done. And so welcome all to Bhagavatam in New York. Now, friends of mine who regularly listen to classes tell me that they find the New York Bhakti Center Bhagavatam classes some of their favorites, and there's a lot of regulars who listen to it. I was talking to Swaha Ambarish's wonderful wife the other day. She doesn't listen live, but she always listens to the reruns. It's one of her favorites, and Henry tells me it's one of his favorites. So I am here to disappoint you. That's my goal today. The appearance of Krishna is very, very mysterious. Now, the question comes up when Krishna is appearing. What is Devaki thinking? Is Devaki thinking this is the personality of Godhead? After all, you could kill the demon Madhu, who was more powerful than Kamsa. You could do all these things, but I'm scared of what would happen to you. Now, I grew up in an Old Testament tradition. In that tradition, there are many Bhakti verses. Love the Lord with all thy heart, with all thy might. These are the core verses in the Old Testament. Every religion has a Bhakti tradition. But also in that tradition, there is a God who, how can I put this politely, has an anger management problem, is a candidate for a 12-step program. And you have a whole series like that where I'm going to smite you, and I want you to smite these people. I mean, a lot of smitings going on there. For those who aren't familiar with smiting, I think it's the present tense of smote or something like that, whatever. Anyway, there are a lot of, because there's a need for that. Why is it like that? Why do we have some hellish planets in the fifth canto? Why does Krishna show Arjuna the universal form? Why do we have that in every tradition, our tradition, Old Testament tradition? You have that element. Why is that there? Can anybody want to unmute and tell me why it's like that? I mean, here we are. The Old Testament says, love the Lord with all thy heart, with all thy might. Jesus came for what purpose? To share love of God. Here we're talking about a mother's love, the highest love that we can find in material world, now exhibited as love of actually the supreme person. We're the rasa people. We're into love. What's all this smiting and smoting in the Old Testament and the fifth canto hellish planets? What's going on here? I'm getting confused. Can somebody help me before I bloop?
Haribo Prabhu, may I speak?
Yes.
When somebody needs or some civilization needs a good smiting, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's to understand that Krishna is our shelter and that we have nothing to fear. That if there's something that needs to be taken care of, if the so-called demoniac forces are rising up and causing fear amongst the innocent population, amongst the devotees, that we should be rest assured that Krishna will come in and smite them. We give them love, and the love that they don't take, and if they can continue onward, then Krishna will do his best, either personally, which is for the demon's benefit, or through his empowered representatives to go out and smote them. So that's my take on it.
Oh, Bhima, I like that very much. Your reflect what you're saying is that Krishna is going to protect us. In fact, the Shringade's appearance is coming in a few days, or a week, something like that. I think it's about a week away, and that's an example. Krishna Daya. Well, give me some realization. I really don't want to bloop this morning. I need some help here.
Hare Krishna. So, Prabhu, just some thought came to my mind that a good government maintains prisons. That does not mean that people have to go to that prison, but only it's a part of a purificatory process to bring people who are distracted back to the normal. And then even parents also sometimes discipline children. That does not mean that parents are always cruel. They just want to see long-term perspective and then bring them back to the normal thing. So.
Okay, so sometimes you need a prison to get someone to come back to their normal way, to come back to the center, and to be recentered on the purpose. Okay, thank you. I can't pronounce your name. Angelica.
Angelica. Yes, you are close.
Angelica. Thank you. I had the accent on the wrong syllable. Okay, go
on. So two things came to me. One was that it reminds me how the less intelligent person is learning through their own experience, and a more intelligent person can learn through hearing of someone else's experience. So in that way, we don't have to go to hellish planets to be able to connect with how they look and how they feel. And also we can learn from other people's mistakes that are described in Bhagavatam in a way that's then it's mercifully also shortening our kind of like learning scope, because it would take so many lifetimes for us to go through those experiences, and we can just go through them through hearing and truly meditating on them. And then the second thing that came to me is that to some extent, as I feel it right now, is that witnessing all those pastimes and how the Lord deals with sometimes ghastly ways with others is to come to a conclusion that still everything he does is a blessing. And I feel like that's usually my saving grace, when I actually can turn my mind around and realize that my conceptions are very faulty, but all of these things that are done, whether they're a rough embrace or a really soft touch, is still a blessing.
It's a very nice realization that it's all a blessing. Bhakti Thakur also discusses this and says some of the even hellish descriptions may be somewhat hyperbolic, meaning exaggerated. Why? Because sometimes people need to be woken up a little. It's just like sometimes when I was a child, I had a tendency to do naughty things. I have an active mind, and if I was bored, I tended to try to do naughty things. Haven't changed much over the years, I guess, but that's a different story. So the remember being with my mother, maybe I was going to steal some candy from a store, like 5 years old, or whatever it was. And she would point out the policeman and say, "You're going to get arrested if you do that. And they'll put handcuffs on you and take you away." Now, I would be very terrified. Obviously, the policeman is not going to put handcuffs and take me away as a 5-year-old, but I didn't know that. And so they would say things like that, and I would either steal candy much more carefully so I wouldn't get caught, or wouldn't steal it. But some way or other, it would create a behavioral change in me. Unfortunately, it was probably the one where I'd steal it more carefully, but that's a different matter. So these things are there to kind of wake us up, but the real essence is much higher. So Krishna showed Arjuna the universal form. And when he showed him the universal form, Arjuna said, it's very ferocious when you see it. There's all these sci-fi movies that come out over the years, which have, whatever they have in it. They have ferocious creatures and this and that, but the universal form is millions of times more ferocious than anything that Spielberg can come up with. Many, many times more ferocious. And when Arjuna saw it, you could see everything, the whole universe, just like Mother Yasoda looked in Krishna's mouth and saw the whole universe. So Mother Yasoda and Arjuna had the same reaction. Enough. Okay, I get it. I'm awed. Now let's go back to where we were, which is the loving relationship. So these smiting and smoting and this and that are there just to bring us back, help us get to the mode of goodness by understanding, deviating from the mode of goodness and going into deviant activities that are detrimental to us is a bad idea. That's the negative. But then there's a positive. It's like, again, as a child misbehaving. If we're very misbehaved, we may go into a corner. Now, that's a very important lesson in being sent to the corner. We'll get to in a moment. But we may go into a corner. And if we're very well behaved, we may get some reward. So this kind of brings us to a higher mode. But why get to a higher mode? Going to a higher mode of nature is, I contend, an absolutely useless proposition unless it's going to take us eventually to the transcendental mode. But from the mode of goodness comes what? Knowledge. And from knowledge comes good action and deeper realization. That takes us to the loving stage. Now, when we go to the corner, if you send a child to a corner, now many of you, I'm sure every one of you has been sent to the corner at some time as a child or sent away. And sometimes a child is very misbehaved and they get sent away to a military academy or school. And sometimes, and it may be for 1 year, or you may go to the corner for 10 minutes. But I remember when I was 5 years old, if I got sent to the corner for punching my younger brother or something, and I got sent there for 10 minutes, what would I remark? My God, that's forever. Because it seems like forever. To a child, 10 minutes in the corner when it's playtime can seem like forever. Similarly, when we talk about going to hell forever, or even going to heaven forever, it's just hyperbole. Obviously, no one's going to go to hell forever. If you made a thought mistake, some misdirected Christians, for example, sometimes say, and if you don't surrender to Jesus, you will go to hell forever. Now, not surrendering to Jesus is a thought crime. In my mind, I did not accept Jesus. If I don't accept Jesus, I go. Has anybody ever had a Christian say that to you? And I'm not putting down Christianity, because there's wonderful Bhakti in Christianity. It really is. But I'm talking about the fanatical Christians. Has anybody ever had a Christian come up to them and say, you're going to hell forever? Just think of this. What kind of God is it that will send you to hell forever for a thought crime? That makes Hitler and other Stalin, these big demons look like nice guys. They kill you once and they're done with you. You know, they put you in some concentration camp and they kill you one time, it's over. But here, forever and ever, you're in hell. So this makes no sense. And even the fifth canto will exaggerate some of these points just to wake us up. But just like a child gets sent to hell, sent to the corner for 5 minutes, it's just 5 minutes. So what we're dealing with here is some kind of, in every scriptural tradition, we'll find there's a certain amount of hyperbole, exaggeration, which helps wake us up. And here we're seeing even Devaki is experiencing her own form of exaggeration. She's thinking that this Kamsa, who's a small demon compared to some of the big demons, can actually kill Krishna. But that's also a nice thing. Why is that a nice thing? Because he's thinking, why is that a good thing? What is good about Devaki being an illusion? Here it is. God is in front of her in a four-armed form, I might add. And she's thinking that this little demon, not even one of the biggest demons, can actually kill God. Boy, she got her head screwed on backwards, it seems. What's going on here? Why is this a good thing? Can somebody help me out? I'm getting into illusion myself now.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Yeah, what I find attractive about it is that I see it as an expression of love, because when you deeply love somebody, you know, your intellect kind of goes out the window. You only think emotionally. And if the love weren't deep, then intelligence would come more into the foreground. So I see it as an expression of deep love.
So what you're saying, Gail, is that when somebody really has deep love, they'll actually lose context. and they may lose context out of love. That's a good point. That's a very deep love. What's another explanation for what's going on here? Anybody else have a different angle on this? What's going on here that Devaki is actually an illusion? I mean, she could just sit down and think for a moment, hey, this is God. He got 4 arms. He has disc and weapons, little old Kamsa up there, you know, he can be easily taken care of. She's in total anxiety. I mean, we're supposed to be transcendentalists. What's going on? Yes.
Maybe it is that by her anxiety, she's facilitating Krishna's enjoyment of his Leela.
Well, it's true. It is a Leela, and she's allowing the Leela to go on. You've made a good point. Bhima, help me out here. Get me out of illusion.
Well, as we have sort of complementary and contrasting rasa or relationships in this world, a son can love his father and yet at the same time fear his father, and fear for his father's, even a small child, fear for his father's safety, even though he knows his father is, you know, even if he thinks as a child his father is omnipotent. So I would think that as Ananda Bihar, way of training this.
Bhima Prabhu, you're a little choppy.
Yeah.
You got a little choppy there,
Oh,
Bhima.
sorry, I'm in the woods.
Get out of the woods,
Yeah,
Bhima
I'm
Prabhu.
sorry, I'm in the woods. Anyways, am I any better right now?
Better now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I'll be very brief because this is a wonderful lecture and I don't want to take up any time. Just that it's sort of like what Ananda Bihari said is sort of a nice mixture, admixture, nuance of ras, that even a child can fear for his father, even though he may even think in his childlike love that his father is omnipotent, that, oh, dad, don't do that, you know, even though dad knows perfectly well what's going on. So that the heart overrides the ashvarya, the heart overrides, devotion overrides that sort of on reverence. Like on reverence disappears when devotion is on the scene, so to speak. So that's what, that's my take on it.
That's put well, Bhima. Devotion overrides the particular circumstances. So because of the devotion that and love, that it would override the understanding that Kamsa is a little demon and Krishna can, you know, blink of an eye, take care of all this. Now, there's one more aspect that I want to add that hasn't been mentioned yet. So I'll add to the comments that have been made. And that is this: rasa, the particular roles here. And what is Devaki's role? Devaki's role is mommy. Now, as a mother is always concerned about the welfare of a child. That is a mother's role. So in that role, I mean, if Arjuna was here, would Arjuna have the same attitude as Devaki? I don't think so. Arjuna was never worried. I mean, Krishna is driving Arjuna's chariot. How many times have you heard Arjuna saying, Krishna, will you duck, please? Or arrows coming? Krishna, I don't want you standing in front of me. Stand behind me. I want to protect you from the arrows that might hit you accidentally. Or no, that's not Arjuna's attitude at all. Arjuna has a whole different relationship with Krishna on the battlefield and elsewhere. So in that relationship, Arjuna is not at all thinking, Krishna, I need to protect you. Rather, Arjuna is seeing Krishna as a friend, and as friend, Krishna is driving Arjuna's chariot, taking care of him. And the friendship is so extreme. It goes like this. when the chariot driver is below, in the way the chariot is set up, below the warrior. It has to be, because the warrior is shooting arrows. So the warrior has to be above the driver, just like if you have a modern tank. When you have the tank, the driver is at a lower level looking out the ports, and above the driver is the gunner. Because first thing is, you don't want the gunner to shoot off the driver's head. That would be kind of awkward. But also the person shooting in the turret in the tank is above it. So in ancient chariots, it's no different. The driver, sometimes the pictures don't always show it well that way, but in studies of ancient chariots, we know this is how it is. The archer has to be above the driver. That's natural. And sometimes sometimes Arjuna would even put his feet on Krishna's shoulders to brace himself to shoot. So here we have a case where Arjuna, and this is God, but Arjuna is putting his feet on God. I mean, when we're in a temple room, we're so careful we don't step on devotees, or at least step too hard when we step on them. We're so careful about that. We try not even to step over devotees out of politeness. We have a certain etiquette. And here, Arjuna is bracing his foot on Krishna's shoulder to fire his arrows. That's pretty amazing. That is a very different rasa than Devaki. Devaki here is saying, oh, this is my son, I have to protect it. So we have different relationships with Krishna depending on our particular circumstances. And these relationships may even change at time. There are times when Arjuna sees Krishna not as a friend, but as God. In fact, in the universal form, Arjuna begs Krishna, hey, can you just come back to two arms and like that so I can relate to you again? So the relationship can change in time, but Devaki's relationship as a mother, and the mother is always has that love to protect the child. So that's what's going on here. And Devaki has a certain, you might say, illusion. But just Arjuna had an illusion that Krishna is his friend, but Krishna is not really his friend, he's God. But Krishna is also really his friend. And here, Krishna is God, but Krishna is also the son of Mother Yasoda. So it's multiple relationships. And we might say it's illusion, but it's really not illusion. It's really the reality, because the deepest reality is what? To see Krishna as our friend, to see Krishna as our lover, see Krishna as our child, to see Krishna in these different relationships. That actually is the ultimate reality. So from some point of view, we may say Devaki's in illusion, but that illusion is actually not illusion, but the higher reality. So this is the way of thinking, the hermeneutics of the Bhagavatam. Now, by hermeneutics, what do I mean? Can anybody give me the definition of hermeneutics? Yes.
I think it's the process by which we understand scripture.
Yes. It's a process by which we understand scripture. Now, I've heard criticized by some criticism that's not based on any intellectual really depth, that hermeneutics is a Christian term and we don't have hermeneutics. Well, it's an English term and it's certainly used in Christianity, but we do have hermeneutics. And who is a great scholar of our hermeneutics? Can anybody guess who's one of our? Who's that?
Urmila Devitasi Prabhu.
Well, she teaches hermeneutics, but that's very good. You said that very well. She's excellent at that. But she's teaching hermeneutics. From which of our great acharyas is our great hermeneuticist?
The Jiva Goswami?
Yes, Jiva Goswami. And can somebody say in 3 words what our hermeneutics are? 3 words. I mean, we can go on, books are written on this, so it's much more than 3 words, but it can be summarized in 3 words, just like the Bhagavatam can be summarized in 4 verses.
Always remember Krishna.
That is true. And Rupa Goswami does say that that's the essence of Krishna consciousness, but that's not quite the hermeneutics, because that doesn't tell us how to understand scripture. There actually is a method. That's close. But if you were at the carnival, you do not get a stuffed bear.
About Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Exactly. That is, you get the stuffed bear.
I love stuffed bears. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you just won it at the carnival. I owe you a stuffed bear. So Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu are our hermeneutics. That's how we understand it. And then we have our epistemology. What does epistemology mean? Somebody help me with this philosophical term.
Yeah, that's over our head.
No, that's not over the head. You all know this. Epistemology.
Okay, how about the study of words? Is that it?
Almost, it's theory of knowledge, how we know things. How do we know what we know? So how do we know what we know? And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're given a theory of epistemology. That when I heard this theory of epistemology, I had one of my big aha moments. I'll tell a little story. I was at college in the 60s, and that time was very tumultuous times. I was going to college in upstate New York, and I was at a nerdy engineering school. And so we had our first strike. It was anti-war times, and our strike was over. We didn't have enough humanities books in the library. It's kind of almost a silly issue. People at Berkeley were burning down the campus over Vietnam War, but we had a strike over something, so we chose that. It was kind of just because there was a mood to go on strike against something. And then it got more and more heated, and eventually became anti-war. And so we had 2 themes going on then, the left wing and the right wing. Now, the left wing, which was in those days Students for Democratic Society and all, said, we need a revolution, kind of calling for a socialist point of view. And then you had the right wing. Goldwater had just lost the election for presidency in '64. And it was kind of not a Trump type conservatism, but a different kind of conservatism, a more realistic conservatism. And I had, in high school, became very interested in the conservative way of looking at things. And in college, I became very interested in the liberal way of looking at things. And then I got very confused. Well, which way is right? And it was a very thoughtful, tumultuous time. You couldn't get by the 60s without at least thinking about things. That's because we had something going on we don't have now. What was different in college in the 60s than now? Can someone tell me what made everyone so thoughtful?
They were drafting people to fight in the war.
The draft. We used to say about Canada, because we would flee to Canada to avoid the draft. It may be cold in Canada, but it's not drafty. So we used to, so the draft made everyone a philosopher. When you're about to be sent to a stupid war in Vietnam to go and, kill people who you have no argument with, and they're going to kill you, you start getting philosophical. And so there was a left wing, there was a right wing, and which is right, which is wrong. These things still go on. And then I heard the devotees present the epistemology of Vaishnavism. And all of a sudden, boing, it went off in my head what the answer is. What was that epistemology? What was that theory of knowledge that took care, that combined all of this together? Can somebody take a guess? No bad guesses. Okay. Somebody's missing out on an even bigger teddy bear now.
You are not your body?
That's true, but that's not the epistemology. That's the ontology, our essence of being. But you're close. That's good. It was achinta beta beta tattva. It can be simultaneously this and that. It's not that this is right or that's right. They both can be right. Wow, went off in my head. See, in the West, we're very trained to think with the word or. It's this way or that way. But if you study Chinese philosophy, Indian philosophy, all of this, you see the word and is so much more prominent. It can be this and it can be that. When I heard achinta beta beta tattva, my head exploded. I said, this explains the theory of knowledge. So I can see there's something good here and something good there and combine it together. So that was the theory of knowledge that's coming. And that's what's going on here with Devaki. She can simultaneously be seeing Krishna as God and seeing Krishna as her son. And the reason why we have trouble understanding these verses, because we're stuck in or mentality. And when we gradually purify our brain by rising early, chanting, doing the things we do, our brain starts shifting from an or to an and we see the bigger picture. So that's really the essence of what's going on in this verse. It's trying to challenge the way we think and help us think in a more integrated, comprehensive way. And that's why these verses can be a little bewildering. They're bewildering to challenge our brain to take us to a higher platform. With that, it's 8 o'clock. I will stop here. And maybe, I don't know, is there time for a question or two? I'm not sure how this works.
Thank you very much, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, for challenging our brain today with beautiful explanation of Krishna's Leela and achinta beda beda tattva. We can take one burning question, maybe two, from the audience, live or online. Akika's cat wants to appreciate Brahmatirtha Prabhu's class. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to ask?
Any questions? Last chance for a giant teddy bear.
I don't have any questions. I just have appreciations for Brahmatirtha Das Prabhu because I really love
your smile, Andrea. You have to
No,
come
I think that last statement that you made is so important about shifting our minds from an or mentality to an and mentality. And I've actually also heard it from when talking, shifting our thoughts from always saying but as opposed to adding and. So like understanding, like when we say, you know, I went to go see my mother, but, you know, it was such a shame because she, you know, she wasn't listening to me. You can change that to, I went to see my mother and it's a shame. Like you can be happy about one thing and then be sad about another, and that both things can exist. So I've heard it in that kind of mentality as well. So I really appreciate that. And thank you as always for your humor.
I in ISKCON Resolve, we're always teaching people how to apologize. And the worst apologies, the apologies given by buttheads, are the apologies that include the word but. Anytime you say, I am really sorry I spilled the doll on you, but it's your karma. I mean, that doesn't work well. Anytime an apology is given with the word but, the only thing that's heard is what's said after the but, not before. So the word but has to be a restricted word. And we try to help you when they apologize, integrate it. I'm really sorry I spilled the doll on you, and I won't do that again. That's the apology that works. Bhima Prabhu.
Yes, I really appreciate, what a wonderful class. So simply put, wisdom in eloquent, short, witty sentences, and one of which was conflict or differences amongst devotees. This was at the very beginning in your resolution, devotee resolution, conflict resolution. Devotees who have differences of opinions learn not, it does not result in conflict, but results in appreciation. So that's that, it's not my way or your way. but it's my way and I can appreciate your way of doing things. So it's sort of like that and or working out even amongst devotees, not only the relationship between Mother Devaki and Krishna, but also in and amongst devotees who have difference of opinions and conflicts, which is fraught, and which is the most dangerous thing within our movement, is differences of opinions that result in conflict, and of course devotees not associating with each other anymore, or having, ill thoughts or hurt hearts. So that whole thing about like, okay, I have my opinion and it stands, but you also have an opinion and I can appreciate that. And I just thought that kind of, I had the same moment you had about Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. It just opens up the whole world. So thank you very much for reminding us of this very important point. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. And I noticed that Angelica commented that my comments reminded her of Marshall Rosenberg, which is a big compliment to me, because he is, a brilliant person on conflict resolution. So thank you very much. It's good to see you all. I hope you all have a wonderful day and have more and more realizations as the day goes on. Hare Krishna.
Brahmatirtha Prabhu ki jai. ISKCON Resolve ki jai. Transcendental Disagreements ki jai. Hare Krishna. Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva ki jai. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you very much, Brahmatirtha Prabhu and Raja Vihari Prabhu and the whole ISKCON Resolve crew. And thank you so much for blessing us with your mature wisdom, maturity and wisdom and understanding. Thank you very much. We need that. Thank you. Haribol.
Hare
Good
Krishna.
seeing everybody.
So much,
Have a wonderful
Prabhu.
day. Don't say
Haribol.
but. Don't say anything after the but. Say and don't do